Et salut tout le monde, aujourd'hui je me retrouve avec Siddarth de chez Skate. Skate qui est un projet très spécial, on va pouvoir vraiment dire en profondeur avec Siddarth. How are you, Siddarth?
Doing well, doing well. Nice to be here.
Yeah, nice to have you here. I really like Skate, so it's an honor. Can you please introduce a bit yourself, what you bring you to build Skate, what you've done in the past, talking about you personally?
Yeah. I come from like a technical background, computer science, financial engineering. Always was very intrigued by like the technical side of a lot of the like trading operations, be it like in crypto, outside crypto, with like high frequency trading stuff, quantitative models, etc. But yeah, I entered like the crypto full time in like 2020. And initially, like first few years of my experience here were more in like the trading operations of crypto assets. So that's where I got like most of my initial learnings from. And like yeah, once we were doing a lot of the stuff that we're trying out with Skate before, optimizing on the liquidity, trading slippage, etc. On like the institutional side of our business before, and Skate is basically started off with like a retail spin of it. So uh, have been in the space for a while. Have been like I got into Ethereum back in 2017 when the initial documentation and everything was coming in.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, been in the trenches. Have seen a few cycles. Have graded a few here, but yeah, going well so far.
All right. And so what's the problem you're trying to fix? What is Skate? How do you define it?
Yeah. So we initially started the whole project with the focus that the DeFi is still in terms of when we refer to like DeFi liquidity on these AMMs or order books, that was
Mm-hmm.
still like a bit more early stage. It was like strategies were, I would say, not that sophisticated. So we initially started to sort of bring forward a lot of our proprietary stuff where we actually used to do a lot of active management of liquidity. We used to rebalance with the help of a few trading partners. We used to keep liquidity super narrow, like for soft peg within a few bips, and then keep actively arbitraging it. But
Mm-hmm.
over time, I think when we sort of were scaling across new different ecosystems, it had become more of a DevOps cycle, especially on the EVM stack, where there were so many new chains coming up. But the biggest problem was that every blockchain ecosystem starts from zero. Like if a new chain is
Mm-hmm.
launching, it has to give out a lot of like token inflation incentives to bootstrap the basic DeFi liquidity, and then only any kind of sophisticated stuff can be done there. So that's where we saw like a big inefficiency in the market. And like from our perspective, we were working with a few of our institutional clients, and a key requirement from them was like they wanted to expand on every blockchain ecosystem, but then they again face the same issue that every blockchain you start from zero. Like if I want my tokens liquidity, like for a lot of say these RWA asset issuers, they would want like some deep liquidity with USDC, USDT pair across every chain. But then if they need at least like 2 million liquidity for any kind of real trading activity with less slippage, they would need it on every chain, like 2 million on Base, 2 million on Solana, 2 million on Parachain. So that model in itself is like where we saw like a big opportunity. So in layman terms, if I have to explain Skate, when you think of like Web2 apps, could be anything, could be like Twitter, Telegram, Instagram, could be Angry Birds, could be anything. Like they basically have built a good product. They have found a product market fit, and then like all these different device segments from them, like say Android, iPhone, this is like a very low lift for them. So they definitely
Mm-hmm.
go live on all these different tech stacks with the same. It feels as if the same app is running across all the ecosystems. But when we think about the Web3 apps, that's not the case. Like every chain or every ecosystem would need, say, something like a Uniswap, where you can swap tokens, etc. But every chain has its own Uniswap. Like you have Radium or Meteora or Orca on Solana side, you have Aerodrome on Base, you have Uniswap big on Ethereum, you have like Camelot on Arbitrum. So for the same use case, you have individual siloed apps which are deployed in like a monolithic fashion, just running on one chain. So that's where we saw like there's a big inefficiency. So uh, Skate is an infrastructure that can help us solve for that. We are building something synonymous with client server architecture for Web3, where we can enable a single app to operate across all the blockchains, Solana, Sui, Base, Movement, all of them at the same time with the same application state, similar to how
Mm-hmm.
Web2 apps operate. And to showcase that, like one of our first apps that we are building would be our own AMM, which would have a single liquidity pool across all the blockchains. So it has a shared price across all of them. So now, if say you have already bootstrapped good liquidity on a few chains, you can just connect to a new chain, and on that chain, you get the price and liquidity as if you're swapping against the cumulative liquidity of all chains. So it gets many-fold better for any kind of project who wants to exist across different blockchain ecosystems.
Okay, I see. Do you think that's fair to call it like liquidity layer, like ZK Link was, Omni? You know, all that project failed, I guess. Where do you think Skate can success? Because it's
Yeah.
hard.
Yeah, I think that there's we have like extensively thought about like what particular design we want to take, and we have a certain principles. So I think first of all, what we wanted to design the whole stack in a way was that if you ever ask that users come to a particular app or a particular front end to do everything, then you lose like a certain amount of users already. So you have to basically meet users directly where they are. So the way we have done our stack is that for a users who's interacting on Solana, they can interact from Phantom or Backpack, and for them it would feel as if they're interacting just with the Solana app. So they don't have to think of the nitty-gritties of anything else. So we meet users directly where they are. And second thing, I think the most novel part of our innovation is that in a way we are just bringing interop at an app level. Like right now, when you think of layer zero, wormhole, hyperlane, these guys are operating more at the asset level, and all of them are very close partners for us because they are the one who sort of do more mission critical stuff in the sense of they bring the assets across different blockchains, but their role is basically they will enable you to bridge from a chain A to chain B. But then if you have to do an interaction on chain B, that's the next step. So it's always a two-step process that you first bridge the asset and then you do the interaction on the chain B. So that's where Skate is trying to innovate. For us, it's a shared state across all the blockchains. You basically don't have to do a step one, step two kind of method. Interoperability is in a way embedded directly into the smart contracts. That's where it gets like many folds better from other design. So I would say like these two are one of the more critical ways we are solving it. And I think the third thing where like we made a like specific design choice is that right now there are few other projects who might be working in a similar area like Polygon's Ag Layer. I love the team, the way they're doing it. Avail is doing certain stuff on that side also. You have Omni, etc. But all of them are sort of approaching it in like a general any to any kind of interop. Like you can send any message from any chain to any other chain. Like theoretically, it can enable way more use cases. But what happens with that is that now, if I have a node running in the system, I need to know exactly what's happening on every chain. So one node of like say any of these stack would need to be like full nodes or have like ZK state attestations from all the different blockchain ecosystem. That's where it gets super heavy, and in the end, it becomes like an academic problem, and nothing ever goes to production for these kind of stuff because it's like super difficult problem to solve. So the way we are doing it is like we have in a hub and spoke kind of communication model. So all the callbacks happen from our hub chain to any other chain. So now, like our nodes, like which is sort of done by our EigenDA AVS, any node on the AVS side just needs to know what's happening on Skate chain, and then they can execute the callback on Solana, Base, Movement, any of them. So that makes it like way quicker for us to solve that, and that's where I think, especially for something like an AMM, that solves the problem pretty well.
All right. Just staying at high level for people watching this, how Skate work? To connect all the apps from all the VMs. What's the life cycle of a transaction?
Yeah. I would take again the example of any of these like Web2 apps. So when you interact with, say, like Twitter, for example, or X, for example, uh, you have a small light app in your smartphone, which basically gets the data from like Twitter's, like say, backend servers on Amazon Cloud or Google Cloud, etc. And that small app just renders it in a particular way on your smartphone, and then it has certain functionality of, say, if you want to comment on a particular post or if you want to retweet something and all, it has a specific endpoints, but then the actual execution happens on the backend servers. You just on your smartphone is a client server, which just sends information or data for sort of execution. So Skate is very similar to that. Like we are doing that for a Web3 model. So we will have these small, like one of the components of our whole stack is we have these small wrapper libraries written in like Rust for Solana, in like Move for Sui, in like a Solidity for the EVM ecosystems, and they have no knowledge of what the actual app is. They have some basic contracts, or basically how you verify signatures of this eigenlayer AVS, how you sort of settle asset, move asset, etc. They're just like small, like user interfacing parts, similar to the components of like these different apps that are installed in your smartphone. Then we have a hub chain, which is an Ethereum L2 based on the OP stack. That's where I think most of the heavy lifting happens. That's like the Amazon Web Services or like Google Cloud kind of component. It has like the core application logic of the contract. So for an AMM, you have these heavy code of like the tick libraries, the mathematics behind it, and like the core application state of what particular price point has how much liquidity. All that information is on the hub chain. And then for sort of like these communication between the backend side and the front end part, or like the server client part, that one you have like REST or WebSocket, some way of communicating between them. So for that, that is like our eigenlayer AVS, which enables like callbacks between each other. Like it basically executes any kind of callback information that the eigenlayer AVS operator attests to from Skate chain to any other chain. Could be Solana, could be EVM chain, etc. So like the four core components of our tech stack is these small wrapper libraries on these different ecosystems, our hub chain, our like eigenlayer AVS, which executes that callback, and then there's like a component which listens to stuff happening on these different chains, and that just executes towards our hub chain. So yeah.
Okay. And if I'm not wrong, you're using intents, right?
Yeah.
For messaging. Okay. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And do you have your own intent network, or are you using something like Anoma or?
Yeah. So we have our own intent framework. We have this whole model that when users interact on these different chains, they give an intent and it creates something called an action. This is basically I want to execute something on like the Skate chain on this app. And then once the execution on Skate happens, and then you have to execute a callback, like settle the user, do something back on the host chain. Then you have something called task. So tasks are basically secured by our eigenlayer AVS for executing the callbacks. And then for actions, it's just these different listeners that anyone can later on run and just pick it up, execute on any chain. So that's what sort of modularizes these different steps of interactions.
Okay. Okay. And talking about the AMM, does it work like a traditional one? What can we do? Why would we use this?
Exactly. So in terms of the AMM, like right now, I'm pretty sure anyone who has been in the DeFi trenches for a while, you would have actively like done farming across different blockchain ecosystems. So that same Uniswap like front end, you would have interacted from a different on different chains. So if you are swapping like say USDC, USDT pool in itself, you have like independent pools on every chain. So now the problem is on some chains like Arbitrum or Base, if you do a big size swap, you might be fine that it has deep liquidity, you do not face slippage. But on certain of the smaller chains, you might face heavy slippage for doing those kind of swaps. So you might just need to bridge back to a chain which has more liquidity, swap there and bridge it in. So that's I think like the key issue. Like uh, all the current AMMs are all like monolithic, and what I mean by that is like they're designed to just run on one blockchain. That's what Skate is trying to change. Like we're trying to build an AMM that will have a shared price across all the blockchain ecosystem. So if I want to put like certain numbers to it, like for say Sol USDC pair, you would have say the deepest liquidity on Solana. Say I bootstrap 100 million liquidity for that pair on Solana. But now say like Solaire or Fogo, a lot of SVML2s or network extensions are also coming up. They also would want like deep liquidity for that pair. But now these chains have to basically start from zero. They cannot leverage the pricing depth of like the Solana pool. So there, if you swap like say a 1 million size, you might face heavy slippage because they don't have that deep liquidity. Same thing for the EVM side. Like certain pairs would have massive liquidity on Ethereum, but if you try to do swap of those pairs on say like Manta or Blast, for example, you would face like some slippage for those pairs. So Skate AMM just changes the whole thing in a way that you now have a shared price across all the blockchains. So uh, if I have 100 million liquidity for a pair on Solana and say that pair is also traded on say like Blast, for example, so I can just bootstrap 100k liquidity on Blast. But now if I do a swap on that pool on Blast, I get the price and slippage as if I'm swapping on a 100 million plus 100k pool, because you have a shared pricing curve between Solana and Blast. And that's what sort of makes the whole model a lot more capital efficient. So it has advantages that are manifold. First of all, now like Blast is still a mature ecosystem, but if there's a new ecosystem, they don't have to start from zero. If that pair has deep liquidity on other chains, just by bootstrapping a small inventory, it can get that pricing depth and liquidity, like less slippage for those pairs. Second advantage would be for the project teams. Now, for like if like say Pendle is there across multiple EVM ecosystems, and they want say develop a big use case for the Pendle token to earn more yields or something. For that, they would need like deep liquidity for the Pendle token across every chain. But now with Skate, they don't have to basically give out a lot of inflation to have like say 5-10 million pool on every chain. They can have like deepest pool on Base or Arbitrum. They can just bootstrap smaller liquidity on the new chains and get that cumulative pricing depth on that chain also. And the third thing would be for LPs. Like this is one of the best things that we have seen from the benchmarks, that now if I say for Sol USDC pair, say like it is not actively traded on Base, but if I provide liquidity on Base, now I can on Skate AMM earn the fees for trading activity also happening on Solana because I'm contributing to the pricing depth. So you basically get a lot better performance as an LP. And because it's a shared price across all the blockchains, that NVV arbitrage is also significantly reduced. So you don't have that much impermanent loss. Because now, in a way, like if you do a big swap on Solana, that moves the price on Base also or on Mantle also, because you have a shared price across all of them. So there are like many folds advantages of it. It's like a very novel innovation in the AMM space, and we're just looking forward to slowly enable it for everyone and get active feedback and improve it further.
Okay. And who are you looking for about the AMM? Are you looking for apps using it or user interacting directly with Skate?
Yeah, I think at this point, like Solana is one of the biggest ecosystems that has a lot of trading activity. So we are trying to be like starting it off, testing the waters with the Solana side. And just sort of like there's a lot of, I would say, EVM projects right now that wanna get the network effects of Solana. So we are enabling them in that way. We are going to have like a lot of B2B partnerships going forward. We would enable like a shared pool between Solana and EVM ecosystem. So projects can be on their core chain, but also get like trading activity or some network effects from Solana. So that would be a big key for us going forward. These are the initial partners we're looking for. In terms of user interactions, we just want to initially connect with the trading communities, because for the whole product, we are going to take like a phased approach of launching it. We are going through multiple audits, so till those are done, we would not enable retail to directly add liquidity. People can only swap at this point, but adding liquidity and others would be enabled. It would be initially whitelisted, but enabled for others after these audits are done. So right now, mostly sort of seeking people to interact with it, get trading volume, get connected with a lot of trading desks to sort of actively arbitrage, and have Skate AMM as a liquidity venue. And then post that, we are super confident that because it is very clear, like it's not like a gray area, it's a very black and white thing, that if you have that shared pricing, it can actually get very capital efficient, because you can in a way get flows from all the different blockchain ecosystems. So from that perspective, we just want to make the whole stack super robust, and we feel like with time, I think volume will keep picking up.
All right, all right. And I've seen you're using so two TA layers you're using for the upchain. You're using EigenDA, you're using Avail. Why this choice and why not Celestia?
I think we have been close partners with Avail for a while, in the
Okay.
sense that what they're trying with Avail Nexus eventually might take a similar form from how we are doing our Skate AMM. So I think they definitely have been super technical, super helpful on how they scale things. Celestia, again, a great team, but like it was more like a decision of how the cost might be across these different stacks. And I think
Mm.
at that point, like Avail made a lot of sense. And EigenDA side, we have sort of included it in to sort of have some kind of redundancy for safety. So it's like a
Mhm.
sidecar with EigenDA, which just makes a redundant copy and just makes things a bit more secure for us going forward. But I think with this kind of setup, everything sort of looked good. They have some interesting design with the like light client setup with Avail. Later on, we would explore a partnership on that front also with them. But I think at this
Mm.
point, I think like the core stack is robust enough, latency wise, throughput wise, everything. So our focus is just sort of have the app on it, like the flagship app on it, like Skate AMM be robust, have it gain more traction, and then we would sort of explore if we have to do any further optimization on the core stack.
All right, all right. Yeah, you said twice that Skate looked a bit like Avail or Aglayer, but maybe I'm wrong. I think Avail and Aglayer use ZK, right? ZK.
Exactly. So
Yeah.
yeah, that's what I was referring to in the sense that uh, on their side also, like if you leverage Aglayer, it basically
Mhm.
needs like state attestations from all the different chains. So what it does with that is it tries to synchronize state across everything, and it's like any to any kind of interop. But
Yeah.
then it gets super heavy, super technical from that perspective. So that's where I think we're trying to have this graceful design that suits the AMM use case especially well, by having this hub and spoke where all the core state is just on the hub chain. Other chains don't have knowledge of what the price and all is. They just have simple signature verification logic where our eigenlayer AVS sort of leverages its attestations for. And with that, I think we can like quickly spin up a lot of things into production, and that would be the key focus for us.
Okay. And do you think in the future when ZK is lighter, easier, cheaper, do you think you could move on ZK or you just prefer Intense?
I still feel I think like zk cost and latency is one of the factors for us not to go
Mm.
that route, but the bigger one is with that you are trying to synchronize states, and when you go into that route that you have 100 independent states and then you try to synchronize them, it's always a very difficult problem compared to just having one copy and everyone just like that particular copy of data is just mirrored on every chain. So
Mm.
that's I think like the model that we would stick to, because like in terms of AMM especially when you try to synchronize states, it becomes a very difficult problem from the perspective of like MEV etc, because like certain chains would be like way low latency, like there's a lot of high TPS chains like
Mhm.
Solana, Mega ETH, Monad. We would be live on top of all these ecosystems, so they will have very quick executions compared to something like Ethereum that might take a lot longer. So if you try to synchronize state with these different chains, different reorg mechanisms on Solana, like transactions can get dropped sometimes, and also like that becomes way too difficult problem to solve. So I think for a lot of use cases, uh, having a particular state being mirrored on everywhere and maybe like a little bit latency overhead of that asynchronous nature of the time it takes to mirror it on other chain is a lot better than having a shared state across like synchronizing state across different chains. So I think definitely this model fits a lot better for what we want to do.
All right, I understand. I understand. So can you connect with something like very, 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 very fast, like MegaIF? Is it possible? Yeah.
Yeah, like Mega ETH is will be a big part of our plans, and even Monad. I think, like I was recently writing a post. It's like a big, I would say, like Wall Streetification of like DeFi in general. Like a lot of people are doing these like strategies that traditional finance used to do in terms of HFT trading. You co-locate your servers with a servers of validators, you have fiber connections between them. You do like very, like you talk in like millisecond or nanosecond instead of like 12-second block. So I think like that would be a big part of our plans. Our strategy is going to be that in future we are super bullish on the whole intent based model. So when we integrate on say Solana on different front ends later for our front end also, we would have like two kind of model. One would be you go through the normal flow, which might take like 15 seconds because of the asynchronous nature of transactions. You have to have a corresponding execution on hub chain. You have to have it attested by the AVS operators and all. But for the smaller size swaps, what you can do is like we will have our own searcher working with a few teams on that side that can just look at the price or the state on the hub chain and quickly quote you a price and then hedge it on the AMM side. So with that model, like latency is not an issue for us because it's just like you just read the state, you quote it, and then you hedge it at a later point. So with those, we can quickly go live on Monad, Mega ETH, Solana, all these high TPS chains. And I think so far what we're trying out with Solana is doing pretty well. There's some big announcements coming on that side, but I think that those particular things will form the foundation of how we would attack like other high TPS ecosystems like Monad or Mega ETH.
So about getting back to fundamentals, what are stateless app, and do you have future integration? I think you have Polymarket right now.
Yeah, Polymarket we recently sunset. So I think like in terms of the ecosystem side, I think our total focus right now is getting the skate AMM out there, be it robust, because we feel that is one of the biggest revenue churners. Like if you look at the total revenue generated, like if I look at cumulative of all the Solana AMMs like Radium, Meteora, Orca, and then I look at Cetus on Sui, I look at Aerodrome on Base, like the cumulative of all of that is like very significant market. So we want to first attack that, make this robust. It's like a very similar strategy to say how EigenLayer approaches with EigenDA. Like EigenDA sets like the design pattern of how you should build an AVS, and then basically then you have the other players playing around. So that would be our focus. We did this pilot with the Polymarket side. So uh, just to justify what we exactly mean by stateless apps is that uh, for our AMM, like the contract that we have on Solana or we have on Base, like for a user when they do a swap on Solana, uh, it feels as if it's a Solana app, they're interacting with it. But the way we have designed it, like that Solana contract has no knowledge of what the price of that pair is, where the pricing is coming from. All of that heavy lifting is done by the core contract deployed on our hub chain. So that contract on Solana side is in a way stateless. There's a similar analogy of serverless in terms of like Web2 apps. When you say that everything is deployed on hyperscalers like AWS, etc., you don't have heavy lifting on the client side of things. Uh, so we're trying to do something in that way with stateless app, and I think the biggest value add of that is like, as I mentioned, like people cannot imagine a single app to operate across Solana, Sui, EVM, like not just on the same stack. Like I don't think there are any of these apps which have a shared state between Base and Arbitrum. So that's the current focus of how we can have the same app to run across all the blockchain ecosystems. So for us, like our focus is that we want to make apps the protagonist. So as an app, if you have found a product market fit on one chain, you don't have to sort of like redeploy, start from zero on a new chain, build community there, etc. Right from like day one, you can go live on Solana, Sui, Base, all of the active ecosystems at the same time, and get the network effects from all of them. And then yeah, that's like a high level like gist of it. So AMM would be the first of it. Polymarket was a quick pilot. We wanted to showcase like this is one of the most active prediction markets. And the thing with prediction markets is like it's a fatter tail asset class. So I cannot have deep liquidity for a market like what word would Trump say in like the next speech on every chain. Like that's not a super liquid market. So you need to have it only on one place and then make it accessible on other chains. So that would be like what we would like to do with this stateless design pattern. But once AMM is robust, there's a lot of like great teams we are working with. Like there's a lot of effort being done, like say in terms of yield tokenization space on the EVM side, you have Pendle doing a great job, you have Spectra doing a great job. But on the Solana side, there are not that many apps that sort of have done and build liquidity for that. So if we can enable, say, Pendle with the same design pattern on Solana, I think that's a big product market fit in itself. So we'll first have the AMM be robust, but then we'll showcase that let's make apps the protagonist. Let's have you be there on every ecosystem so that you get the distribution of each of them, and you can basically like leverage on top of that.
All right, I see. And how are you going to incentivize LP provider?
Yeah, so that's I think the best thing we have seen from the benchmark so far. Initially, we'll start off with a bit more B2B kind of model where we work closely with the market makers, with the project teams, just whitelist them and have them add liquidity. But then they can also see that distribution and that like shared pricing advantage on their front, where you get like flows from everywhere. LPs earn more trading fees because, like so far, what used to happen is that if say for any ecosystem, like say Scroll for example, Scroll would not have as much trading activity as Base right now. So if I have 1 million liquidity, I have to put for ETH USDC pair. I'm better off putting that liquidity on Base because I know I would earn more trading fees for that pair on Base because there are more flows, more active trading happening there compared to what's happening on Scroll. But Skate AMM sort of solves that. Like there is, if you're contributing to the pricing depth on any chain, you earn trading fees everywhere. So I think like this would be one of the biggest case studies for us. We would be actively posting data on our socials of like, okay, look at these particular positions. We have been actively rebalancing it. Look at how much trading fees they have earned compared to someone who was just being on one chain and only getting flows from that particular chain. And then sort of show, like just expand that case study to more and more ecosystems.
Okay, I see. And what's the business model of Skate? So you probably will have a token. You're using EigenLayer security, but maybe you will use part of Skate token. Yeah. What's the utility? What's the plan?
Yeah. So I think the key use case for the Skate token would be with our EigenLayer AVS straight away. So we will have like a strategy, especially for the Skate token, to be staked on our EigenLayer AVS. In terms of like revenue model and everything, on the AMM, we would charge 1/3 of the trading fees towards the protocol, and a good component of that would go towards our EigenLayer AVS. So there would be different kind of strategies. One would be with the Skate token, where we would later push out an article around how we can enable like slashing with our AVS. So initially, I think the particular subset of operators that would be available for slashing would be once our Skate token goes live, that's Skate token one, and then we would enable it for the higher notional value of the restaked ETH to be enabled for slashing. And then I think it's more around alignment also. Like you basically have to drive a higher risk and reward ratio towards like the Skate token. So out of that 1/3 of trading fees, the protocol side, a good part would be going towards the Skate token, and a good part would be going towards the restaked ETH. But I think the portion would be a bit more, like I would say, towards the Skate token to sort of have higher alignment. So if we have more interactions happening from different chains, that directs more revenue towards the Skate token, and it accrues more and more value over time.
Okay. And are you scared to fall a bit like in the same trap as EigenLayer, being like this monster that no one knows because it's in the background, you know? Because you're not really using Skate, you're using apps and layer one directly. So you might be used by everyone, but no one know, you know, so you don't get this premium that everyone gets.
I see. I mean, it's a interesting, I would say, analogy. I think it can go either way. Like many a times, like even like now, I think in Web3, you have this big fatigue for infra because those are the ones that are valued the highest. Because if you become the rails for it, then you definitely are the least easy to replace. Like Nvidia, for example, with the whole AI wave, Nvidia being the back end is the one that accrues more value. So I think from our perspective, definitely there's going to be a big focus around community. Directing enough of the incentives and revenue towards the token is a very important part of it for that people to care and actively follow the whole thing. And then definitely, I think one of the best things of our strategy is that we are trying to address very big markets all at once. So the AMM will sort of target, like I see personally as like all these wallets as a big gateways for users to enter. So we will have users who are interacting with, say, MetaMask wallet extensions on Chrome, on the EVM ecosystems. We have users who come from Phantom or Backpack on Solana side from the smartphones. We have users who come from Sui, uh, Aptos, all of these other ecosystems. We will have users who come from like Ton, keep a wallet on the Ton side with a big, massive Telegram community and all that. So I think that distribution coming towards our front end would be a big key for us also, for people to just know a bit more about what's happening and all. And that's where I think a good part of our efforts going forward, once everything gets more robust, would be directly interacting with a lot of these trading communities, understanding what they feel about the product, get active feedback, and slowly sort of become ourselves one of the key part of their daily flows, a key liquidity venue for them to swap at. And once this come to the front end, they actively see the development, new features coming up. I think that's how you develop trust and how things sort of scale from there.
All right. Let's talk a bit about security. So you're using pre-confirmation, you're using intents. What makes sure that nothing gets hacked? And can you just, because we didn't explain, some people doesn't understand what is an intent or a pre-confirmation. Can you very high level explain what it is? I know it's hard.
Yeah, so it's again, I think I always try to go back to the Web2 analogies because that's what people can visualize a lot easily. So when you like something like a post on Instagram, for example, what you do is you create an intent in itself that you sign certain data from whatever the authentication method is, and it goes to the like a backend through REST or WebSocket, and then it basically just updates certain thing in the backend, and then it's liked actually. So it's a very similar model of how we are trying to do it, where you create a transaction or an intent on Solana or on Base. It goes through our like whole execution network, and there's a very key reason why we have created our own hub chain there, that on our hub chain we are adding this pre-compile later on, which enables verification of ED 25519 signature standard. So just a high level on that is that Solana, Sui, a lot of these new ecosystems follow that curve for the private key, everything. So when you sign transactions, you are basically signing on that curve. Whereas EVM chains use ECDSA, which is a different curve. So by adding that precompile on a hub chain, we can actually verify that this particular private key of like this Solana user actually signed this data on a hub chain. So that's where I think it gets a lot better. And even beyond that, like who can actually like bring that call data to that chain. We are going to dockerize the whole way how these intents get picked up and executed. So we are working with a few major like this is a area even I'm not the best guy for, but we have like very proficient teams who work on key management solutions and all. I think Cubist is one big partner that we are actively interacting with. If we go ahead, I think that we would announce a big part on that side also. But they are the one who can basically enable us to enforce policies. So whenever the executions also happen, we can verify that okay, this user actually signed it, then this eigenlayer AVS operators attested to it from the BLS key, and that policy engine can actually have that check on that, so that there are multiple layers of security that we can enforce, so to make sure everything goes hand in hand, all keeping in mind that this is a very high throughput application, so we have to keep all the design choices keeping in mind that we need this to operate in a low latency environment. So far everything has been looking promising. There's a lot of like the research paper we posted for SkateMM is just one part of it. There's a lot more happening behind the picture. So I think there would be a lot more in terms of these individual developments that we are doing, putting out the GitHub repos in like public good for people to interact with. And I think as these things get robust, I'm pretty confident that the whole stack will hold up pretty well, and we just have enough audits, enough security checks that nothing breaks, no security incident happens.
All right, and those Skate give more latency to a layer one. If I'm using like an app on a layer one and I want to use an LP which is using Skate behind, does it bring a bit more latency? Do you know around how much?
Yeah, so it can add around 5 to 10 seconds from what we have seen. It depends on use case. So a big case study for that is like a lot of like we if I have to generalize it in general, any app that puts metadata on any chain is now usable only on that chain. Like if you think of like world chain, for example, like WorldCoin has got this iris data. Not sure how encrypted it is. I don't have much understanding on that, but when they put that iris data, all that metadata, the Merkle tree roots, everything on one chain, like say they have initially started off with Ethereum, then Optimism mainnet, then they sort of went for their own chain. So now if I have to say on an app on base, enable that this function can only be called if this is an actual human. So I have to add something with like checking if this guy has a world chain ID, for example. So now what would happen is that either I replicate that whole metadata on base also for sort of that verification to happen. So now if not that, then I have to like we cannot do the whole of that. Then we have to basically wait for something directly with layer zero or something where you send that through some interop model and then you verify that. So there is more latency on that compared to basically you keep that metadata on one chain and mirror it in like that hub and spoke model that I mentioned before. So those kind of use cases, I think what Skate is doing fits really well. So within that 5-10 seconds, if we can replicate that like Merkle tree roots and everything on a hub chain, we can basically enable smart contract level verification of if you are a human, if you're holding that particular NFT and all. So you don't have to basically now that base needs check, you replicate all that metadata to base. Now if a better chain would need that, then you replicate it on better chain. Like that model is where the key inefficiency that we're trying to solve for is.
Okay. Okay, I understand. So you talked a lot about Solana. You talked about maybe later integrating MegaEth, Monad, Berachain maybe. So what are the chain to onboard? Can you tell us? Is it permissioned, and is it going to be on the governance in the future?
Yeah. So from our perspective, any of the active ecosystems, we are going to go live with one or two initial pools on top of them. So initially, pool deployment would be permissioned while all the security audits are underway. But then later on, we will open it up for everyone to sort of deploy pools, add liquidity, do anything on their
Okay.
end. That would be the strategy going forward. But yeah, I think like we wanted to start off with Solana because of the amount of trading volume it can generate. So we'll focus on a few pairs there. But I think we are soon going to announce our launch on all of the major EVM chains like Base, Arbitrum, BNB chain, Bearer chain, Ethereum, all of these ecosystems at the same time, and then also on like the upcoming alt-VM ecosystems. So Eclipse we went live, but Solaire, Fogo, Atlas soon. A lot of those like SVM ecosystems are coming up over the next quarter or so. And then you have the Move VM stack. So Sui definitely has a big user. Uh, like they have a lot of like IP gaming stuff that we have seen. So we did one campaign and I think it was super successful. So that would be a big focus for us. But aside from them, Aptos movement, and then later on Ton. Ton has its like own programming language, is a bit of a beast to sort of get everything right. So that would be something that we would be focusing on later also.
Okay. Okay. So now the question everyone want to know: when TGE, when launch, and what 2025 look like for Skate?
Yeah, I think we are pretty close to going public. Once all the stars align, once we have everything going well, I think we will be pretty soon announcing that. But yeah, I think like a big focus for us was showcasing the AMM, having people interact with it, gain active feedback, improving on it, and getting it right on Solana first. So I think we are pretty close to doing that. And then I think like over like next quarter or so, there are a lot of feature improvements, a lot of security enhancements, a lot of latency optimizations, like the stuff I mentioned to you about precompile, having a KMS execution network where everything is Dockerized, anyone can run it, having like support for like multi-hop swaps. Initially we'll start off with like solo swaps, but later on we'll enable multi-hop swaps. And then like the searcher model I mentioned, where we basically get millisecond settlements on mega ETH monad, and then there's like a follow-up execution happening on the AMM later. So a lot of this is already in development stage, would be coming live over the next quarter or so. yeah, but I think from our perspective now, sort of like the core stack is there, that core app is there. Like really, it feels a bit surreal because we just thought that okay, this makes a lot of sense. Like AMMs should not be completely monolithic. Why do you have to do the same job independently everywhere? But now seeing that shared state, it coming together, it's like feels really good. It's been like 12 months or so development cycle, but now I think we have everything together to sort of go public. And I think once we are there will be definitely announcement on socials and everything. But yeah, I want everyone to just like stick around a bit more.
Okay, okay. Yeah, that's very exciting. It's very interesting to see that kind of actors. Like for someone that want to, contribute, be part of the adventure, what can they do?
Yeah, so I think like like the big focus for us, as I mentioned, is at this point getting the AMM right. We are
Yeah.
launching across different ecosystems, and also we're trying to connect with all the major trading communities, Alpha Group, get their feedback because they would be one of the more active consumers of the product. We have a wait list on like amm.skatechain.org. People can register to it. We would love to sort of send you some kind of access code. You interact with it and let us know what you feel about it.
Hmm.
Other than that, on the whole tech stack, the few partners that we're still talking to, like on EigenDA side, we're trying to increase our economic trust even further. So with that, talking with a few major LRTs, major AVS operators, so that again would be a big focus for us going forward. And the third thing would be, yeah, I think like after I would say a few months, then we would basically approach Skate in more of a infra kind of perspective, because what we are doing right now with the AMM, this kind of application design pattern can be applied to different other use cases. Like in general, if your app stores any kind of data on chain, it can only run on that chain. But if you want to run across all the blockchain ecosystems, be live on multiple VMs at the same time, Skate offers the most seamless way for that. So we would be talking with a lot of project teams to sort of deploy on Skate and sort of follow this design pattern, and then basically just get the distribution of every ecosystem at the same time. So that would be another key conversations for us.
Okay, okay. We talk about a lot of things. Is there a subject I missed you want to bring up? I don't know.
Uh, I guess yeah, that should be most of it. Other than that, I think we wanna talk to the more like proficient people across different stack, like the foundations of different ecosystems, because like one of the more involved components of what we're trying to do is we have to understand like the nitty-gritties of how like building a smart contract in like Sui's version of Move has to be, how we have to like put multiple multi-call kind of calls on the Solana side, how we have to do uh, like parallel execution in the case of Monad. And also we're trying to talk very closely. So anyone who's interested in contributing, we are trying to actively expand our team across different roles. So I think that would be another key thing that I would like to mention to anyone who's interested to learn more. Rest, yeah, I think there would be a lot of announcements in the coming week or so regarding the product, regarding the metrics, everything. And I think one big focus for us is we want to go live on top of these major uh, like meta aggregators on Solana side, where most of the trading flow comes from. That would be like the first test for the whole product on how much we can scale on that part. So a lot of announcements on that part. But once that happens, I think again like focus on talking with a lot of trading communities, have direct integrations, scale from there, and then see how things go.
Okay, okay, awesome. I just have one last question, but it's more for you. When I'm receiving big brains, I like to have a peek in the brain. What excites you right now in crypto? Who are you following? That kind of things to teach everyone.
Yeah, yeah. I think like if you go to any active conferences, and if you are even on crypto Twitter, you can see that there's a big, I would say, increase in terms of people who are interested in Solana side. That's one ecosystem that has got a lot of things right.
Hmm.
So, uh, like personally, I think like when I dig deeper and we try to understand a bit more of everything that's happening, It looks super promising, especially like a lot of the low latency stuff. Like one thing that has interested me a lot was if you look at the volume split now. Initially, it used to be mostly like these AMMs that take most of the volume on Solana side. But recently, there has been a lot of these high frequency actors who might be just using AMMs in the background or like other liquidity venues, but their volume share has increased so much. Like Solfi, there's this
Yeah.
trading desk. I think it's Ellipsis Lab recently came out, but they daily do like 4 to 5 billion in trading volume on Solana. And
Mm.
that's like way bigger than most of the EVM ecosystems combined. So I think that's something that we want to understand a bit better of. We want to be active on that side, interact with like players like these in the space. That's something super exciting. One thing that I've publicly said a few times, I think ZKTLS is a
Mm.
something that can actually bring a lot of real adoption. Uh, you, like as I mentioned, one of our big design choice was that we don't want to have that user acquisition cost that you come to our website, you change this RPC, come to our chain, do that stuff. I think that's like you cannot win that. I think in the way the market has become right now. So I feel like the ZKTLS is a great way to bootstrap users by piggybacking on these Web2 behemoths in some way. You can just do it as a marketing campaign. You can use it for some other like just directly piggybacking. I heard like Uber's data of drivers, like their ratings, drive history. So basically onboard them, and then Uber charges I think significant 30 to 40% fee for all the rides to like the drivers get, but they will just charge 0%. So they will just
Mm.
basically vampire attack on like their already bootstrapped network. So I think these kind of models, you just put a crypto incentive layer, you use ZKTLS for doing these like vampire attacks. I think that can actually bring a lot of great apps into the ecosystems and like very easy to acquire new users. And also, I think that's something that interests me a lot going forward. Yeah, I
And
would
who are
say
you using ZKTLS? Who are you doing? Which project do this around the EigenLayer? I don't remember the name.
There are few. I think we are connected with Opacity, who's working
Oh yeah.
building the whole thing as a AVS side. And there's this team ZK Pass. They don't use EigenLayer directly, but they are a very proficient team also. We also have, I think, Reclaim Protocol, who also does some stuff, and they actually have already added support for a lot of alt VMs like Sui also, I think. So yeah, I
Mm.
think all three are super proficient team, but I think in general, this space definitely will bring a lot of revenue, I feel.
Okay. So mostly Solana and ZKTLS. That's what you're
Yeah,
looking right now.
that's the biggest one. Yeah.
Ok, ok, amazing. L'interview est terminée. Si jamais vous voulez voir un petit peu ce que fait Skate, vous avez de toute façon leur Discord, leur site internet. Si jamais vous avez des questions, comme d'habitude, on a le Discord gratuit, totalement gratuit, qui est le lien est en description. N'hésitez pas à nous ping là-bas. And thank you, Siddarth. Thanks for coming. It was really interesting, and I hope for you the best launch.
Yeah, thank you so much, man. Great chat.
See you, man.